I am thrilled to be back. Actually, in the exact same room we were in almost 3 years ago. Elisabeth Sabaditsch-Wolff from Austria. Lots has happened, and but we're only going to talk about a few specific things because we do have your presentation that you'll be doing this evening, where you'll be going into an update on your case and all that. So we're not going to go there in this interview. But one of the things that in our traveling together this week that you mentioned was tell me what it's called?
The Global Compact for Safe and Orderly Migration.
Oh my. I mean, no, I have not heard about this, and your immediate reaction was, Kat, you need to know this. So share with me and my audience what this really entails and how it's happening. What's happening?
The Global Compact for Safe and Orderly Migration is a very, very, very dangerous piece of paper. It's actually, I don't know, 20, 25 pages. It was concocted in New York. It was called the New York Declaration back in 2016 when negotiations began.
You said New York, so did it start in the U.S.
Yes,
or the UN?
At the United Nations in New York.
Okay.
That's why it was called the New York Declaration.
Interesting.
Yes. And like I said, 2 years ago, probably now 2.5 years ago, and it's interesting that the negotiations were started after the great migration crisis of 2015. It's all the member states of the United Nations coming together, their diplomats discussing, ways to facilitate migration. Now, the compact, that's what it's called, itself, is due to be signed in Marrakesh in Morocco next month, only in a few days.
Wow.
The negotiations were finished in February of this year. Immediately, both Trump and Viktor Orban of Hungary pulled out.
Good.
At the same time, Austria was still in there. All the other former Eastern European countries were still in there. The reason why this compact is so dangerous, we are being sold this compact as a non-binding agreement, again, to facilitate migrants coming into our countries. Point one, we are not asked. This compact is not being taken to the people to be signed. Why do they do that? Of course, they know the supranational establishment knows exactly the people aren't going to buy this.
Yes.
The second point is the indigenous people are not mentioned in this compact. It is all about the rights of the migrants, but nothing about the indigenous population. This is evil. The third point is all the establishment that is now going crazy about all these countries pulling out, which I'm going to tell you about the countries pulling out, are telling us, what are you worried about? It's non-binding. Well, again, point one, if it's non-binding, what's the big deal? Point two, why did you make it non-binding? Is there an ulterior motive behind it?
Okay.
Yep. The problem with all these compacts, with these agreements that are agreed upon on an international, supranational level is, and even if it's non-binding, it will trickle top down because the courts, the national courts, will in their verdicts against migrants or in favor of migrants refer to this global compact. So it will trickle down into national law.
Whoa.
Despite it not being non-binding. Despite it being non-binding, I'm sorry.
So what are some of the rights that it's giving the migrant?
Oh, the right to free healthcare, to schooling, to housing, everything. You have to look it up. It's very easy to find online, and it's also, which surprises me, it's an easy read. It's not the language of the diplomats where you
Legalese.
legalese.
Yeah,
You can read it. You don't even have to read behind. It's all
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
My colleagues and I in Austria realized in February and March of this year that this compact was extremely dangerous and that we needed to oppose it. Thankfully, we now have a government in place that is open to criticism of this compact. At
Okay.
least one part of the government, one party of the coalition government. And so we started, again, my colleagues and I in Austria, to ask for meetings with certain influential people in the government in order to inform them about the dangers of this compact. We began doing that in July, and apparently we were very successful, but because by the end of September, I think it was end of September or maybe October, the Austrian government had officially decided to leave the compact. And that set off a domino effect.
So who else has joined in?
Croatia, Slovakia is the latest. They said no yesterday. Today, the Slovakian foreign minister resigned.
Wow.
Yes, we were instrumental in that.
Interesting.
Not the resigning, but the leaving of the compact.
Yes.
You have Estonia, you have Switzerland. There's a big discussion in Germany, but I don't think it will be successful. I think Merkel is still strong enough to push this. You have Japan for obvious reasons. You have Israel for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
The list is getting quite long. Australia, for obvious reasons. And it was interesting to see, once the Austrian government opted out, it was indeed a domino effect. So we didn't have a very successful year, both here in the United States and in Europe, but this was one huge victory. And let's hope that more countries will follow. Because, again, I urge you and our viewers to look it up. I mean, even though the United States has decided to leave the compact, it is still a very important read. Because you can assume, you can actually, you and I know they're going to try again.
You commented that, and it could have been in our discussion prior to the interview, that the compact really only addresses the migrants and not the indigenous.
No.
And so it's not pointing out any rights of the indigenous people?
No, it doesn't even address any of the challenges faced by the indigenous population in those countries. Where are we? We don't count. It's all about...
So it's all about the
Yes.
incoming. Sounds like we all need to be a migrant somewhere else then.
Probably.
If they all come here, we'll go over there.
Yes,
Pick
yes,
a lovely
yes,
place.
yes,
And,
yes.
wow.
But please take a look at it. It's important.
Okay, so once again, it's called,
The Global Compact on Safe and Orderly Migration.
wow. That says so much in just the name of the compact itself.
Yep.
One of the other things that just happened here in the United States that I saw reported on Facebook was in, I believe it's Minnesota, they have set up a hotline for people to begin reporting people who are talking about Islam. So it's creating a snitch line.
Yeah.
This sounds like something back in the days of the Holocaust as it was starting, and things that have been going on in Europe. So does this ring bells for you?
Well, it's more than I wouldn't even use the word worrying anymore. It is the imposition of Sharia law on a formerly free society. It doesn't surprise me given that the Muslim population is rising so rapidly.
Yeah.
You also see it, you know, you just had the midterm elections, you see what happened. I mean, demographics are changing, and you can see that in who gets to go to Washington and to represent the
Yeah, we have
American
new Muslims.
people.
Yeah.
We have Muslims, we don't have one, we have many.
We have 4.
We have one Muslim American woman who is demanding, not asking, demanding that Congress change its 131-year-old law banning, is it religious symbols, head coverings?
Head coverings.
Head coverings. And that is, it's not, I'm not even going to use the word outrageous, this is what to expect when Muslims are elected, just as nobody should have been surprised when the first National Socialists were voted into power, because they did exactly what they said they would do, and the same thing goes for Muslim Americans who said exactly what they were going to do. If you see a Muslim American woman wearing a headscarf, the next step is you can expect her to demand more. That's in the DNA of the religion.
Yeah.
And the snitching, to return to the snitching, it also reminds me, I mean, I grew up with snitching because when I was living in Libya, for instance, or even in Kuwait, the practice of the Islamic faith entails snitching. It also entails being more religious than the neighbor next door.
Wow.
Because he will then say, oh, he's not Muslim. And not being Muslim means...
You're an infidel.
And that means you must die. So it's always a competition between the Muslims who are living, you know, next to each other or within a family of who is the most devout. So that, of course, the competition entails the snitching. So again, it's not a surprise that this is happening. I'm just looking, have we seen anything, what happens to the people who are reported on this hotline?
I don't know. I don't know yet. Apparently the hotline just opened, so.
Yeah, exactly, but that would be interesting to know. Do they just keep lists?
I don't know.
It would be something to look into as this progresses.
You know, one of the things we're starting to see also is the demand for halal meat in schools for the children. And in Europe, in Austria in particular, have you, I believe in the UK it's already begun. Are y'all seeing it in Austria as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, due to the influx of those Muslim migrants into my district in Vienna, I can now see, I mean, recently a halal supermarket opened right down the street from where I live.
Yeah. There's several not too far from where we're sitting right now, here in San Antonio.
Yes, and you should know that the Quran actually says that you don't, as a Muslim, you don't need to eat halal food. It's not, if it's there, it's good, but if there's no halal food, then it's okay too.
Yeah.
Again, it's a demand to show that
they're in control.
Islam is in control and that they are superior.
And to take our rights away from us.
Yes.
And so in Austria, your homeland, where you grew up and the world was very different 40 years ago, do you see the encroaching of the Islamic ideology, I don't call it a religion, but the ideology, political ideology into Austria is taking your rights as the indigenous people there, taking away your culture, taking away the beauty of the country, everything?
Yeah. I mean, one major problem is the lack of freedom of speech, which I will be talking about tonight. Another is that we as mothers have to be very, very frightened for the safety and the sexual integrity of our children. not only the sexual integrity, but also the safety. I am so worried about my daughter getting in trouble outside of my home.
When you say getting in trouble, that means,
I don't even want to talk about it. I mean,
so that
terrible things happening to her.
so what, all right, let's take it off of Ella and let's talk about what's going on in your community. Your beautiful community of Vienna has a situation now, I'm presuming, so correct me if I'm wrong, that due to the migrants that are now refugees, whatever you want to call them, that are now residing in your community, what was once a safe, friendly, happy, lovely, everyone,
safe.
yeah, community now is fearful,
Yes.
is daily reports of little girls as well as little boys being gang raped.
Yes.
And
Bullied in school for not wearing the headscarf
until they do.
until they do. You have a rising crime rate between the different ethnic groups. You have Afghans versus Pakistanis, Afghans versus Chechens, the Chechens against the Pakistanis. You have all these Moroccan gangs, Tunisian gangs. So it's not just migrants versus the indigenous people, but you also have, as you
Between
do
themselves.
outside in the Islamic world, all these groups
Wow.
fighting each other. Sometimes it's because of a girl, sometimes it's because of a bad look, and strangely enough, there's so many knives out there.
Yeah.
So people walk.
And y'all don't have guns.
Not a lot of guns,
Yeah.
no, we don't. And even if, I mean, people wouldn't know what to do with the guns. So what the Austrian government has now recently, they have recently passed a law that for banning migrants from carrying knives.
Wow.
I wonder if that's going to work, honestly. I mean, I think
Well,
it's a
you
great
know.
idea, but I don't know if it's going to work.
There's rocks, there's broken beer bottles
Exactly,
and things
exactly.
like that.
So I'm a bit, I'm waiting to see whether or not this law will actually work.
Yeah. So one of the words I keep hearing when I'm hearing things reported from Europe are the gangs. And that, to my mind, means there always seems to be large groups of men. And men can be adolescents on up.
Yeah.
And they're not going around doing good Samaritan acts.
No, not really.
No.
I don't see those Samaritan acts. It doesn't mean that, of course, not everybody's like that, but I would say the majority is like that, unfortunately. But again, you can't really blame them because this is what they were taught from
That's what
early age.
That's what the Quran says. And
And it's also their culture. This
Yes.
is what they grew up with. I'm not condoning any of their behavior, but we let them in, therefore we imported this kind of behavior. And I would like that to disappear again. We had enough crime even before that great migration crisis of 2015. It has soared in the meantime. And for me as a mother, of course, the incredible rape rate, I mean, it is staggering. And
now when a gang rape is going on, the police don't try to break them up, do they?
they don't find out.
They don't find out.
No, they
I've also heard that they just turn their deaf ear and go the other way.
They usually do. They do that in the UK.
Okay,
Because they're
not so
so
much.
afraid. They're so afraid of being called a racist. And some of the police, of course, are from a Pakistani background.
So they're
So
So that's part of their culture
it's
too.
part of their culture too, which is another worrying situation because both the German and the Austrian police are trying to recruit migrants into the police force.
Yeah, that's real smart.
Now that is going to work really
Yeah.
well.
I asked you over a meal while we were traveling what you would say to someone who was going to be traveling to Europe in that area. Would you recommend that they visit London?
To quote my wonderful friend Katie Hopkins, if you want to go see something special in London, avoid London. She's right. I wouldn't go to London anymore, and that is a great shame. These are beautiful cities: Paris, London, Berlin, gorgeous, gorgeous cities. But I wouldn't go there anymore, and I haven't been to any of those cities. Berlin, I was in Berlin in July of this year. I was glad to leave again.
Do you think the royal family has any connections and tie-in with the Islamic movement and stuff?
Well, they will, because we all know that Prince Charles is a great admirer of the Islamic faith. So
interesting. Is he a practicing Muslim?
hard to say. I don't really know, but I know that he's on the record for saying that he's very enamored with the Islamic faith.
Wow. Well, I wish we had more time, but you're going to be speaking in about 10 minutes.
And I'll just have to come back.
I know.
We always find something to talk about,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time this evening. Look forward to hearing you this evening.
Thank you.
And yes, most definitely, we invite you to be back again.
Thank you so much,
Elizabeth.
Kat.